Hello, I'm Claire Penketh. I'm Associate Professor and Subject Lead for Disability Studies, and hopefully you already all know me, but possibly not. I'm going to talk about my contributions to the book Metanarratives of Disability, Culture, Assumed Authority and the Normative Social Order, and I know that this is the focus for your advanced research course with Professor David Bolt, and this is obviously his edited collection, which features, as you will know already, a range of chapters from people within our team and beyond. So I'm going to focus specifically on my work on this book project, which was the front cover design here, the illustration. I want to talk to you a little bit about the origins of the drawing and its relationship with the project more broadly. So on this first slide, we've got the title of the image, Track and Trace, and I've included an image of the book cover as you might recognise it. So I just wanted to start by explaining that the full title for the image on the book cover is Track and Trace, Our Paths Cross, We Do Not Touch. And I'll talk a little bit about that very briefly, but I did want to explain that the image that's used on the book cover is actually part of a series of drawings that I did and I completed the drawings during lockdown. And I've included 3 drawings on this slide. One of which, the one on the far right hand side, is the pen and ink drawing that was included eventually on the book cover. But I've included 2 of the other images here just to give a little bit of an illustration of the range of the drawings that I'd done. So, what are the drawings about? They maybe are quite difficult to decipher, I don't know, but they're pen and ink drawings based on direct observation during lockdown of a plant that I had in the garden. I'll explain further, but on this plant in the garden, during lockdown, this plant was gradually being absolutely eaten to smithereens by slugs and snails. And at the time of lockdown, if you all probably do recall, there was an initiative to try and track and trace people's movements in order to try and locate and think about how infections were being transmitted between people. So eventually this became part of the tracking and immunisation sort of took over from that. But initially we had this concern with trying to track people's whereabouts and trace people. And I use this idea of track and trace to try and record the marks and the journeys, if you like, that these snails were making by representing this through direct observation of these holes that as they were gradually being eaten in. So if you like, these drawings are what would be described as maybe indexical lines. They're not drawings of plants, they're drawings of the sort of movements or the pathways that these snails were making. And as I say, it's very, very much rooted in the fact that I was, as everybody else was, we were sort of confined to our houses, limited movement. But importantly, although we were able to sort of get out, maybe go for our sort of hour long exercise, walk and what have you, but our ability to actually be in contact with other people was extremely limited, hence the title Track and Trace of these journeys, this idea about our paths crossing yet being unable to touch. So although the images do reflect these marks and lines that cross and appear to sort of intersect and overlapped, in reality there was very, very limited contact. And this is really sort of moving towards this idea of distance, maybe breakdown in our ability to connect with people. So these were some of the themes that I was exploring. And I should say, actually, so I'm just moving on to the next slide, which is there are another three images here. Again, it's just to illustrate that this was a range of work that was developing, again, pen and ink drawings. So there are another three images here. Again, these are all related because they're tracking these ideas of this indexical line, of this movement, of the holes that were being created and the pathways that were being created. And again, they illustrate this idea about pathways, but our inability to touch, our inability to connect with people. Now, during this the time, obviously, David was working with the other authors of the chapters. The book project had started, predated the pandemic. But one thing that does, I'm sure David will talk more about this, one thing that does run as a very strong theme through the book are people's experiences of the pandemic and their experiences of lockdown, and the way really that people who might be described as disabled and non-disabled experienced some degrees of sense of loss, maybe this idea about lack of connection with other people that they may have been very close to. So again, as I say, these are themes that came through. And David had asked me if I'd consider working on an image for the book. And at the time, I was trying to think about different ways of connecting with this theme of meta-narratives of disability. But I did keep coming back to the pen and ink drawings that I'd done with this theme of track and trace, our paths cross, we do not touch. And although I experimented with a range of different types of images, it was the image that I came back to in the end. I selected the one that was used, which is described here. The title of it is Track and Trace 5. As you've seen, there's a number of images. Our paths cross, we do not touch. And it was made in with pen and ink on paper. And on the right-hand side of this slide, I've included the image description that was included in the front cover of the book. And I'll read this out for you now. And what I was attempting to do here was to describe the image. Part of the rationale for that, I'll say part of it, a leading rationale for the image description was to make the image accessible. But also, I think what was important for me is in describing the image description became as much a part of the creative process as the initial drawing. So two characters extend from the top right hand corner across and into the centre of the page. They're uneven in tone, shifting from light to dark. The space between them varies, and at different points they all but touch. At a midpoint, the left-hand mark shoots off at a near right angle. Beneath this spill are smaller, disconnected brush marks. Below and to the side of the main protagonists are finer lines. Passing over and under one another, they trace uneven, triangular and rectangular forms. The lines appear to cross, yet touch nothing but the surface of the paper. So as I say, I was interested here in this image description. There is quite a particular reference here actually to the work in David's chapter. So David develops an analysis of Samuel Beckett's Endgame, which if you read David's chapter, obviously he talks about the connections there with that play and with the experiences of the pandemic. So when I'm referring there to the main protagonists, I'm almost starting to imagine the relationship between this very abstract drawing but these leading characters, if you like, so that the drawing starts to connect with this representation of maybe dramatic characters in some way. And as I said and just referred to, what started to become of interest to me was the way that I would use the image description and use that in conjunction with the image. Although the image on the book is the image on its own, I did at one point propose to David that this should have been the image. So if I go to my last slide, I actually felt that the image description should have been the image that was included on the front cover of the book. So we had some discussion about that. I think it's worked as it is. But here I've got an image which shows a red typed overlay of the image description over the top of the image. And again, I just wanted to end with this discussion really of or my thoughts, well, rather than discussion, but my thoughts on the creative potential for working with image and text and using the idea of image description as a means for extending and provoking ideas for further drawing through the use of the image description. I think that's all that I need to say. I hope that you enjoy the sessions with David. I'm sure you will, and also that you enjoy engaging with the text and with the book as a whole. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you.